She Who Created Me. Written by hercreation. Narrated by Princely. Featuring KumBomb.
If you see this, please find my parents and give it to them. It will explain everything. It was a painfully dull night, just like any other night at the bar when I met her. I normally kept to myself, preferring the company of my book over inebriated men with their glazed-over eyes and barely concealed intentions. I glanced up from my novel to order another drink when I finally noticed her across the dimly lit room. I had never laid eyes on anyone who radiated such clear, intense energy before. She was like a revelation, an unexpected prophecy. I didn't even believe in auras or anything like that, but right hand to God, I swear she was glowing. In long, fluid motions, she slipped towards the exit as I watched myself thrust my book into my bag. My legs, wavering from my drink, urged me after her onto the pavement outside. I found her sitting in a weirdly graceful, almost cat-like fashion on the curb, smoking a cigarette nestled between two long fingers. Although I'd probably given up the habit almost a year previous, I perched next to her and asked to bum a smoke. Her lips curled into a smile, revealing one slightly crooked tooth amongst the otherwise flawless grin. She plucked a cigarette from her pack and placed it between my lips, and lit it with a smooth strike of a match. She pressed her thigh lightly against mine on the stained curb, directing her burning gaze towards me.
Took you long enough to come say hi, didn't it?
She asked with a smirk. She'd been waiting for me. That's how I met her, how the entire solar system shifted, and how she became the sun. She breathed life into me, catalyzing emotions that I had never known, and let alone experienced. She burned bright, hot, and intense. She destroyed what little was left of me when I met her, scorched me down to crackling bones, and rebuilt me in her image. And she was fiercely protective of her creation. She always had an arm firmly placed around my shoulders, or pulled me along by the hand to let onlookers know I was hers. And I was hers. I loved her, and she loved me, in the most raw and ferocious way conceivable. She consumed me, sucked the life out of me gradually with poisonous words. She bored into me with that intense gaze, now savage and unhinged. She isolated me. I was her creation, and I belonged to her. Nobody could be trusted with her plaything. Not past lovers, not friends, not strangers whose glances she deemed to be more than fleeting. Our home became a fortress. To avoid being derided for my clear inferiority to her, I learned to creep lightly over eggshells. They cut my bare feet like glass, but she was my protector, and I felt safe there. Her hands were large and strong. That was until she started throwing things, seizing me by the arms, refusing to let me leave her surveillance whenever I pushed gently against the walls she had so carefully crafted around us. She had built them so slowly, so cautiously, that I barely noticed until the last brick was placed and sealed. She'd reprimand me through boiling tears. How dare I disrespect her authority? After all she'd done for me? After she'd forged me in the fires of her very being? In the beginning, I would have submitted, laid my forehead on the ground before her, begged for forgiveness. But my mouth was dry, and my skin longed for the touch of light outside the illumination her presence provided. I stopped worshipping her. Having lost the affection of her most cherished pet, she shut down, slept for days, refused to speak to me, destroyed her body, disconnected. Some amount of time, maybe a year, passed this way. Time behaved differently in our microcosm, passing rapidly, slowly, then rapidly again. I remember finding her car parked in a lot near our fortress. She had run away from me, left the safety of our castle. I was awkwardly trying on her role as rescuer. I would save her, restore her to her former glory, and lie at her feet. Instead, I found her body inside the vehicle, still and cold with vomit crusted on the side of her mouth, betraying the immortality I had come to expect from her. My knees buckled and I melted into the concrete below. I heard myself scream that scream I've always heard about, that inhuman howl full of all the grief and guilt in the world. I don't remember much after that. A twist of fate. The creation destroyed the creator. I would come to learn that this couldn't be farther from the truth. This was her last act of absolute control.
This is what happens when you don't listen, my sweet pet.
It worked. I was ruined. I couldn't stand to be around anymore. Anywhere. But especially not anywhere near our own Eden, now twisted and fallen. I moved across the country a few weeks later. I'd better my life, become someone new, forget it all, leave it all behind. This wore me out, physically and mentally. I slept long hours only to dream of her, and always awoke with my arm off the side of the bed. I figured this was because I was used to having her hold my body as I slept, uncomfortable and tight. Eventually my arm hurt with such intensity that I sought treatment. The doctor explained something about joint distraction and showed me some exercises that helped me enough, but only really delayed the ache until I fell into bed that night and she could whisper me to sleep. I was her pet, her precious doll, her most special creation. I smiled into my pillow and collapsed into a dream of her each night. One night I jolted awake to the bizarre feeling that my body had been dragged in my sleep. My hand dangled off the edge of the mattress. I wrote the pulling sensation off as pins and needles, tucked my arm back under the blanket, and returned to sleep. In my dream, she brushed my hair carefully and smoothed soothing oils into my cracked, dry skin. I awoke again with my right arm draped over the side of the bed. This time, I couldn't will it back up to my side. I watched in terror as a large hand slowly crept up from beneath my bed. Long fingers crawling slow and deliberate in a spider-like movement along the floor. The hand stopped abruptly, then reached up to sluggishly close around my own. Through feelings of abject horror, I felt a small flicker of comfort. The hand jerked me off the bed with sudden strength and fervor. I hit the floor on my side hard. I laid there, staring into the void below my bed until a snaggletooth smile appeared in the darkness.
Took you long enough to come say hi, didn't it?
She had been the true source of my pain. She had been pulling me, her pet, her favorite plaything, back to join her as soon as she abandoned her mortal skin. I recalled the great care she had provided me, the stronghold she had painstakingly built to protect and display her greatest creation for only her to admire. "Take me with you, please," I whispered as her shadow enveloped me. I slipped headfirst into darkness. Sad, they said, when they found me dead on my bedroom floor with cavernous lacerations to my neck and wrists. A clear suicide, said the police, although they couldn't explain my dislocated shoulder or the brutality of my wounds. My parents didn't press them to investigate further. My parents knew they had lost me to her years ago, when she forbade me to leave our fortress even to visit them. Can you really blame her? People murmured as the news spread, and with the suicide and everything, she must have felt so guilty. The way that poor girl found her, dead of an overdose just hours after she tried to leave that bully once and for all. So sad. What they don't know is, I'm finally safe again. Almost happy, even. A complete return to happiness will take time, she says. I think I like it here. She says I will want nothing, nor will I need to worry about being hurt here ever again. I dine on milk and honey each meal, and it has only turned to maggots and ash in my mouth since I arrived. Where I am, I'm not really sure. It's getting harder and harder to see outside as she worked tirelessly to reconstruct the barricades of our lost haven. There will be no windows or door this time, just to keep me safe from the humanoid creatures that lurked beyond those walls. They frighten me, with their heads a mess of gore and hanging at right angles to their bodies. She is steadying herself up high to place and seal the last brick with a thick coating of mortar, blocking out the perils of this foreign world I now find myself in. Darkness is falling over the barren landscape that lies beyond our castle as I finish this letter, with hopes that it will somehow reach my family. To let them know that I am finally safe, held in the clutches of my guardian, my protector, my creator. I will know no darkness, fear, or hurt. Mom, if you're reading this, take comfort in the fact that I am resting, secure and peaceful at last. With the last slab of rock to finalize our fortress, I can warm my skin under her glow forevermore. She who created me will illuminate the darkness closing in on this forsaken realm, and in my troubled, senseless mind.